He planned for weeks. The light, the timing, the shot. But what the forest gave back wasn't him, just his camera. And the last photo wasn't nature at all. It was just after midnight when Ethan Wolfe finally zipped up his pack. The soft hum of his laptop lit the small rental cabin in a quiet Oregon town, where he had spent the last hour double-checking weather forecasts, trail maps, and solar projections for one specific moment. One very specific moment, when the morning light would hit the east face of Whispering Rock Falls. He'd run the timing through 3 separate apps. Sunrise was at 7:14 a.m. The waterfall would be cloaked in mist until 7:31. But at exactly 7:46, if he was standing on the ridge above the western bend, he'd get it. The shot. The perfect shot. Ethan wasn't a professional photographer. Not yet. But you wouldn't know it by the way he worked. Nature photography was more than a hobby. It was his quiet pursuit of meaning, of silence, of truth. He didn't take photos to impress. He took them to understand the world, the way fog clung to a valley, the light that shimmered between pine needles like liquid silver, the way water could fall for hundreds of feet and still whisper when it hit the rock below. He was 28, quiet, sharp-minded but not loud about it, a recent graduate in environmental studies who'd chosen solitude over noise. A few months earlier, he had moved out of Portland and begun exploring Oregon's hidden natural gems, places where phone signals died and the trees seemed to breathe around you. His sister Lisa often teased him about it. "Can you not go anywhere with cell service?" "To be fair," Ethan replied in a voice memo once, "I do leave you detailed itineraries, like a responsible hiker." And he did. Every trip was logged. He left printed maps with circles and arrows and backup GPS files in cloud drives. He'd even texted her before bed that night. "Whispering Rock Trail, heading out early. Sunrise Falls. Wish me luck." Lisa responded with a thumbs-up emoji and a heart. She was used to it by now. This was Ethan's rhythm. Plan, pack, disappear for a day, return with memory cards full of trees and light and water, and the occasional wide-eyed fox peeking through the brush. But this time he didn't come back. By the time the world learned his name, all they had was an Instagram post. A single photo of the trailhead sign captioned, "Tomorrow's light will hit the falls perfectly. Can't wait to share it." That was October 13th, 2019. The next morning, Ethan slipped out of the cabin at 6 a.m., just as the sky began to fade from black to navy. The air was cold, sharp, the kind of autumn chill that wrapped itself around your lungs when you breathed. He wore a dark thermal jacket, weatherproof boots, and carried only what he needed: a Nikon D750, 2 lenses, a journal, snacks, water, and a folded trail map. His GPS tracking app, Trailmark, activated at 6:08 a.m. It logged him moving northeast toward the trailhead. He parked near marker 12B, where a trail cam would later capture a still image of him stepping onto the dirt path. Hood up, pack tight, camera strap across his chest. The path into the Cascade Range can be both stunning and cruel. Massive evergreens lean into the trail like they're listening. The deeper you go, the less the outside world matters. No cell signal, no sound but birds and your own breath. Whispering Rock Trail earned its name for a reason. Hikers often claimed they heard voices near the falls, not conversations, not whispers in English or any language they could identify. Just a feeling, a suggestion of sound. Like the trees were muttering things you almost understood. Ethan would have known that. He read everything about the trail beforehand. He liked mystery, but he liked facts more. He wouldn't have gone looking for myths. He was looking for light. His GPS shows a steady pace. By 9:13 a.m., he was deep within the trail system. The air would have been brighter now, flecks of sunlight flickering through treetops. His camera began capturing the journey, a series of 84 photos that would later be recovered. The first images are stunning. Moss-covered boulders, frost crystals melting on leaves. One frame, in particular, shows sunlight piercing the canopy like a blade. His composition was impeccable. He was excited. You can feel it in the way the images dance forward. He was building toward something. A shot he hadn't reached yet. He scribbled in his journal too. One entry, time-stamped 10:20 a.m., read, "Mist rising fast. Falls audible now. Trail narrowing. This place feels older than time." By 11:40 a.m., his GPS pinged for the last time, roughly 400 feet from the base of Whispering Rock Falls. And then nothing. No more pings. No more journal entries. No more texts. Just silence. 3 days later, a pair of hikers named Jordan and Tammy Cresswell were traversing a stream roughly 2 miles downstream from the falls. They had taken a different trail, one less maintained. Tammy spotted something wedged between rocks in the stream. A camera, half submerged, the strap tangled in roots. The lens was cracked. The memory card, miraculously, was intact. That camera was Ethan Wolfe's. The authorities launched a full-scale search immediately. Dogs, drones, rangers, volunteers. They mapped every inch from the falls to the lower ridges. His scent trail disappeared about 100 yards from the edge of the waterfall. No blood. No camp. No broken branches. No gear. Just his camera and a final frame that made people stop breathing. The recovered photos were time-stamped from the moment he began the trail up to just past 11:40 a.m. The last 4 photos are different. Gone is the careful composition. Gone is the patience. The images appear rushed, blurred, like the camera was moving fast. The final image is the most haunting. At first glance, it looks like motion blur through trees, a smear of green and brown. But if you look closely, if you really look, you'll see something. A shape in the distance, between the trees. Humanoid in form, but wrong. The proportions off. The silhouette too narrow, too elongated. And something like a shimmer, curves around its edges, as though it was there and not there. That photo ignited a storm of questions. Experts confirmed the metadata. The photo was taken at 11:46 a.m., exactly 6 minutes after his last GPS ping. Same coordinates, same lighting conditions, same exposure pattern. Nothing was doctored. It was real. But what it showed, that was harder to define. Lisa Wolfe didn't believe in ghosts. Not then. She believed in her brother's routines, in his logic, in his commitment to safety. Ethan wouldn't have taken a risk that big. He wouldn't have wandered off trail. He wouldn't have fallen without a trace. When she saw the last photo, she didn't cry. She stared at it for a long time. Then she whispered, "What were you looking at?" The internet had answers, or at least theories. Reddit lit up with threads about the Whisperer, a pre-colonial oral tradition known to certain tribal groups in the region. Stories of a presence in the falls, not a spirit, not a ghost, something older, a shape that watched from the mist, that took what didn't belong. Some called it legend, others called it superstition. But for Lisa, it was something else, a placeholder. Because what else do you call something that vanishes a man, leaves no trace, and still lets his camera live on? Ethan's Instagram remained untouched after that day. His final post became a memorial. People commented in waves. Some left hearts, others left prayers. But one comment stood out, posted months later by someone anonymous. "The light hits different when something's watching." Nobody knows who wrote it, just like nobody knows what Ethan Wolfe saw in his final moment. But the forest knows. It always does. And somewhere deep in the Cascade Range, near the base of a whispering waterfall, that last photo waits for anyone willing to look closer. 3 days. That's how long the forest held its breath. By the time search teams fanned out across the Whispering Rock Trail, the trees had already buried their secrets. Search dogs picked up Ethan's trail near the ridge, but lost it less than 100 yards from the waterfall's base, as if the scent had vanished, mid-step, as if he had simply blinked out. The weather had held steady during those days. No heavy rainfall to wash things away, no rock slide, no swollen rivers. His path should have been preserved. But there were no boot prints, no discarded gear, no broken branches leading further. Just that camera, wedged between roots in a place no one could explain. It wasn't near a fall zone. There were no cliffs or slopes nearby steep enough for someone to accidentally tumble 2 miles downstream. If Ethan had fallen, the laws of physics said his body and belongings should have followed a certain path. But they didn't. Only the camera made it out. Lisa arrived the same day the news broke. Her eyes didn't blink much when she saw the trailhead or the last known GPS pin. She stood at the ridge with her brother's journal in her hands, flipping through pages now smudged with river water and pine resin. The last legible entry, written with a slightly heavier hand than the rest, read, "Something feels off, like I'm not alone out here, but no noise, just pressure. I'll be quick." Lisa circled that line with her fingernail over and over again. By then, the 84 photos on Ethan's memory card had already been analyzed by state police and a local digital forensics team. They confirmed what was obvious. These were untouched. Raw files. Original timestamp metadata. No signs of manipulation. The first 80 photos told a story that felt like poetry. Each frame moved deeper into the woods, climbing elevation, adjusting for light, reacting to shifting mist. His eye was focused, intentional, calm. But then something shifted. Photo 81. A half-framed shot of a fern in motion, the camera tilted slightly. Photo 82. Unfocused trees, a blur as if the camera had swung too quickly. Photo 83. Another blur, but this one horizontal, like the lens caught movement, fast. And then photo 84. The shape, not fully humanoid, not animal, no discernible facial features. It stood among the trees in the distance, barely visible, except for the outline, the shimmer. Some even said it looked like heat distortion, the way air wobbles above pavement on a hot day. But this was October. In Oregon, 48 degrees. Experts were split. Some believed it was a trick of light. Others insisted it was too symmetrical for chance. One analyst, a retired forensic photographer, commented, "If this was movement blur from the camera, the background trees would also show distortion, but they don't. Only the figure does." It didn't make sense. And that's when the online frenzy began. Reddit threads began circulating what would become the legend of Ethan Wolfe's last frame. Some called it proof of cryptids. Others thought it was staged, a viral hoax, until the police verified every detail: timestamp, location, weather match, and file integrity. Theories began to sprout like fungus in damp soil. Theory 1, an accidental fall. Maybe Ethan slipped and the camera got carried downstream. Maybe he wandered too close to the edge. But this theory never held. No blood, no gear, no signs of impact, and more importantly, no body. Recovery teams rappelled down every possible drop zone near the falls. Divers were brought in. Nothing. One ranger, after rappelling down a 40-foot chute, radioed in, "Nothing down here but time." Theory 2, animal attack, a cougar, a bear. Maybe something startled him and he ran. But again, no blood, no drag marks, no paw prints. And what kind of predator takes only the man, and not the food, not the gear, not the camera? Search dogs had been trained to detect even trace amounts of blood or human remains. They found none. The dogs would follow the scent up to the falls, and then whine. Some refused to continue. The handler of one of the K9 units later told a local paper, "My dog has found 3 cadavers in her career. She knows death. But this?" She didn't act scared. She acted confused. Like the trail just stopped existing. Theory 3, human foul play. This was the one Lisa hoped for. Because if someone had hurt her brother, at least there would be answers. Closure. A villain. Police scoured his contacts, his messages. No enemies, no threats, no stalkers. The man was mild. He argued over which hiking boots had better arch support. Not politics, not grudges. But there was one account. A hiker named Drew Kessler had passed through the lower part of the trail system that morning, heading in the opposite direction. Days later, he would report something strange. I saw a guy up near the bend above 10C, he told investigators. Tall, wearing a hood, but it wasn't Ethan. I'd seen Ethan's post online. This guy looked different, just standing there, not moving, like he was waiting. Drew kept walking. He never saw the figure again. His statement was never confirmed. Trail cams didn't capture anyone else on that section, and no footprints, no alternate GPS logs were ever found to support it. Still, it left a cold imprint on the timeline, a shadow where someone might have been. Theory 4. The unknown. This one spread like wildfire, especially after the last photo went public. Paranormal blogs, YouTube channels, folklore enthusiasts. They all found the same thread and pulled. The local lore of the Whisperer. It wasn't a well-known tale, not in the way Sasquatch or Skinwalkers were. The Whisperer existed in the half-spoken warnings of the region's oldest families, people who remembered stories their grandparents told, but never wrote down. A presence that watches the falls, that mimics the wind, that waits. The most consistent part of the legend was that it never takes in anger. It takes in silence, without warning, without scream, just gone. Some oral traditions described it not as a being, but a force. A thing that lives where water touches stone, where mist coils like fingers. Lisa didn't believe in any of that. Not at first. She clung to logic like a lifeline. Ethan was careful. He was precise. If there was a mistake, it had to be findable. But as weeks passed, logic began to collapse. The deeper the search went, the colder it became. And something else began to happen, quietly, without press. Other hikers, months later, began reporting strange things near the Whispering Rock Trail. Sounds that weren't sounds. A sudden feeling of being watched. Camera malfunctions. Batteries draining without cause. One hiker posted anonymously on a forum. I left a photo of my dad who passed away just near the edge of the falls. Thought it was dumb. But when I turned around to leave, I swear I heard someone breathe behind me. Nobody was there. I haven't gone back since. Lisa started the Find Ethan Wolfe campaign that fall, not just as a search operation, but as a call to memory. She printed posters, set up a website, coordinated with missing persons organizations. She refused to let the story dissolve into digital fog. Every year since 2019, hikers gather near the trail in mid-October. They bring photos, loved ones lost, family members gone, even pets, and they leave them quietly near the overlook, just past the ridge where Ethan's last GPS pinged. It's become a kind of ritual. Not a memorial, not exactly. More like a question. The forest never answers, but sometimes the wind shifts just right, and you get the feeling that something is listening. To this day, Ethan's Instagram is untouched. His sister hasn't deleted the final post. She won't. Not until she knows. The photo remains there, unchanged. A trailhead sign. The caption below it reads, "Tomorrow's light will hit the falls perfectly. Can't wait to share it." And the world waits. Still wondering what Ethan Wolfe saw in those final seconds. Still staring at that last image, trying to understand whether it was a trick of light or something stepping out of it. There's something haunting about an image that can't be explained. You can look at it over and over again, zoom in, adjust brightness, tilt your head. But the more you search, the less it gives. It's like staring into fog and convincing yourself you see a shape, until the shape blinks. The last photo taken by Ethan Wolfe was exactly that. Blurred, off angle, motion heavy. But something was there, just beyond the center frame. The official report listed it as unidentified visual artifact. But the people who saw it, who really saw it, gave it other names. Figure, apparition, watcher. Lisa Wolfe kept the raw file saved on 3 drives. She showed it to no one outside the investigators at first. It felt too personal, too sacred, like a final breath. But eventually, a version leaked. It only took a week to circle Reddit and reach every corner of the internet's mystery community. Forums, YouTube breakdowns, podcasts, photographers, paranormal researchers. They all came for it, and the opinions were as scattered as the mist on the falls. Some said it was a person, maybe another hiker, distorted by movement. But if that were true, where had they gone? The trail cameras picked up no one else that morning, and the figure's shape didn't sit right. Too tall, shoulders hunched, limbs wrong, elongated or blurred not from motion, but from something else, something that bent the light around it. Experts analyzed the photo for weeks. They tracked every layer of metadata: aperture, shutter speed, exposure, timestamp. It was all consistent. The file wasn't tampered with. And most importantly, the GPS matched the last signal from Ethan's phone, taken just feet from the overlook at Whispering Rock Falls. What unnerved people wasn't the blur. It was the suggestion of intent, because the figure wasn't wandering through the frame. It was facing the camera, centered, watching, almost as if it knew. One forensics analyst, a retired crime scene photographer, wrote a personal note to Lisa after reviewing the image. "I've studied motion blur for 30 years. This is not motion. This is distortion. Something was there, but it didn't move the way a body does. It either refracted the light or interrupted it." The investigation continued, but its pace slowed. Without evidence of foul play without a body, Ethan Wolfe's case was moved to the cold files. Case File E29. The state's final position. Disappearance under unknown circumstances. But some weren't ready to let go. A small group of online sleuths, digital archivists, mythologists, image analysts, formed what became known unofficially as the Wolfe Circle. They weren't chasing clicks. They weren't armchair detectives with hashtags. They were obsessed with a single question: what did Ethan see? One of them was a linguist from Idaho, retired. He had studied native oral traditions for decades and began digging into the origins of the name Whispering Rock. He found that the term didn't originate from modern hikers or even early settlers. It came from a mistranslation of an older Chinookan word, tilamutks, which roughly means where breath is taken, not as in breathtaking, as in taken. It was a name whispered across generations, never written down. It referred to a location that changed shape, sometimes a cliff, sometimes a stream, but always a place where silence lived, where people disappeared, not by violence, but by vanishing. In the months that followed Ethan's disappearance, more stories began surfacing. Quiet stories, private ones. A woman named Carrie left a comment under Ethan's photo. She claimed to have hiked the trail 10 years earlier with her fiancé. "We heard something strange," she wrote. "Not a voice. More like a hum, like air vibrating." He stepped closer to the edge and then stopped. Just froze. He said he felt something pull in his stomach, like vertigo but heavier, like the mountain wanted him. Another hiker posted a blurred photo from 5 years ago, eerily similar to Ethan's: mist, tree line, a distant shimmer. He'd never noticed it before. He hadn't even meant to capture that direction. That photo now circulates in the same online folders as Ethan's. There was something else too. People who returned to Whispering Rock in the years after started leaving offerings. Not flowers or crosses. Photos. At first, it was just Lisa. She hiked back to the ridge the following October, stood at the same overlook where her brother's last coordinates had landed, and placed a laminated print of Ethan smiling in a canoe. She left it wedged between two rocks. She whispered something. No one heard what, but others started to follow. Photos of loved ones lost too soon, friends, siblings, children, printed, sealed in plastic, and left gently on the ledge. No one claimed ownership. It wasn't organized. It just happened. Year after year, the number grew. By 2022, over 40 photos had been placed there, facing the waterfall, and each year the wind around that ridge grew stranger. Some hikers reported hearing voices, not words, but emotions, a pressure in the chest. Some said it felt like grief. Others said it felt like being remembered. A few hikers returned to find their photos gone, Not blown away, not torn or buried, just gone. Local rangers stopped removing them. Some quietly admitted they felt uneasy doing so. One ranger reportedly said, "It's like interrupting something mid-prayer." But what of Ethan? Despite the stories, the theories, the legends, the truth remained as misty as the falls themselves. No trace of his body, no sign of his gear, not even a snapped twig that could explain the direction he might have taken. Only that photo. Lisa stopped responding to media interviews after the second anniversary. She had said everything she could say, repeated the same truth. He was prepared. He was smart. He wasn't running. He wasn't depressed. He went to capture a photograph, and something didn't want to be seen. That was the line that stayed with people. Because it wasn't just about Ethan. It was about that shape, that shimmer, that moment where a man, a camera, and something else met. The image still circulates online. Frame 84. People post their interpretations constantly. Some try to sharpen the contrast. Others isolate the shape, run it through AI tools, seek facial patterns. Nothing sticks. The more technology is applied, the more the figure seems to fade, like it resists being understood. In one Reddit thread, a user shared a poetic thought. Maybe it's not that we're seeing something. Maybe it's that something finally saw us. Lisa sometimes visits Ethan's page. She never posts, but she sees the comments. They come from all over the world. Some say they felt the same pull. Others thank Ethan for the photo. Some just leave emojis, a camera, a waterfall, a candle. And one day a comment appeared from a throwaway account. No profile picture, no followers, no other posts. It simply said, "Not everything that vanishes wants to come back." It was deleted hours later, but not before someone screenshotted it, not before it became part of the timeline that leads up to October 14th, 2019. The last day Ethan Wolfe walked into the Cascade Range and tried to capture a moment of light. He didn't know he would become part of the light, or the shadow, or whatever lived between them. There's a kind of silence that only lives in the woods. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of something else. A hum behind the air. A stillness that feels intentional. You can't quite name it, but you know when you feel it. The ridge above Whispering Rock Falls has that silence. That's where they go now, every October. Not just Lisa Wolfe, not just Ethan's friends, but strangers, travelers, hikers with no connection to the case except the way it made them feel. They bring photographs, laminated, weatherproofed, sometimes framed in plastic or wrapped in cloth. Not all of them say why. Some don't even leave names, just faces. Faces of missing people, lost brothers, lost daughters, grandmothers who vanished before their time, friends who never came back from war, children taken too soon. They're placed carefully at the edge of the ridge. The wind is almost always there, but somehow the photos stay, as if something wants them seen. They call it the Watcher's Offering. Unofficially, of course. No one started it, no one runs it. It's not in any brochure, no tourist map, no article in any hiking guide. And yet it happens. Every year. Around the same time, Ethan Wolfe disappeared. It's quiet, private, reverent. Lisa goes too, but never on the same day. She doesn't want attention. She leaves early in the morning, hikes alone. She carries a single photo, always the same one. Ethan standing waist-deep in a lake, camera in hand, eyes squinting from the sunlight. She doesn't cry anymore. She just waits, breathes, listens. Once she stayed after dark. She sat on a rock near the overlook, headlamp off, just letting the cold settle in around her. She said the stars looked brighter than they ever had before, like they were blinking in code. She stayed there until she heard something. Not a voice, not a snap of a twig, just a breath. Exhale, like someone behind her, mirroring her own. When she turned, no one was there. But the photo of Ethan had tilted in the wind, leaning toward the drop. She placed it back and whispered, "I still see you." She didn't tell anyone about that until a year later. What happened to Ethan Wolfe isn't just an unsolved case. It became something else. Something more than mystery. It lives in the collective imagination now, in that blurry borderland between fear and fascination. Because the final photo is still out there. Every few months, someone rediscovers it, posts a new theory, breaks it down pixel by pixel. They highlight the outline, adjust the exposure, flip it upside down. Some claim they see eyes, others see limbs. One even said it looked like a figure reaching forward. But no one agrees on what it is. And maybe that's the point. Because whatever Ethan captured in those last seconds, whether by accident or fate, it refused to be known. It didn't want clarity. It wanted presence, a presence in the frame. Something just distant enough to not make sense. Something just visible enough to make you wonder. Lisa says she stopped chasing answers. Not because she's given up, but because she knows her brother. She knows how he moved through the world with patience, with curiosity, with wonder. If he saw something in that forest, maybe it wasn't meant to be explained. Maybe it was meant to be felt. In the years since his disappearance, dozens of people have claimed strange experiences on the trail. Not threats, not ghosts, just disturbances, watches. One hiker described a moment near the falls where every sound cut out at once. No birds, no wind. Even the rush of the water seemed to pause. He said it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. Another swore her camera stopped working near the ridge, only to begin recording again after she crossed the tree line. When she played it back, there were 30 seconds of static. And under the static, barely audible, was breathing. Others don't talk at all. They just leave their photos, touch the stone, and walk away. It's become a kind of pilgrimage. But not everyone believes. Some still say it was staged. That Ethan faked his death, that he wandered off into a new life. That the photo was a clever trick. But those people never stood at the ridge. They never saw the tree line sway without wind. They never felt the pause in the air. Because when you stand there long enough, something happens. You stop asking where Ethan went, and you start asking why that photo came back. Of all the things the forest could have given, his gear, his body, his journal, it returned only one thing, the camera. As if it chose what to show, as if the forest made a decision, and what it gave was a warning, or a window, or maybe just a mirror. In one quiet interview, long since taken down, Lisa said something that stayed with people. She was asked what she believed Ethan saw. She didn't hesitate. I think he saw something not meant for us, something between here and wherever here ends, and I think it saw him back. She doesn't talk much anymore. She still runs the Find Ethan Wolfe page, still shares memories, still answers the occasional message from someone who believes they felt something on the trail. But she hasn't hiked back in over a year. The ridge is different now. More people know about it. Some come for the mystery, some come for the photos. A few come hoping to see the figure in the trees. They never do. But almost all of them leave changed. Not terrified, not even sad, just altered. Like something inside them quietly shifted. Like they stepped into something ancient. Something watching. Ethan Wolfe is still listed as a missing person in Oregon. His case file remains open. But what's open more than anything else is the question, the one etched into every frame of that final photo. What did he see? What saw him? And why? Did the forest choose to let the camera go? You've seen the photo, you've heard the story. So tell us, what do you see in Ethan Wolfe's final frame? Is it a shadow? A shape? Or is it something deeper? Something that only shows itself when we look too long into the woods?